Newton Burton Anderson, February 22, 2007. Firefighters responded to the burning home of Frank and Bertha Cobb in Tyler, where they made a gruesome discovery. Bertha, 65 years old, was found in the living room, face down, bound and gagged with electrical tape. She was naked from the waist down. She had been essayed, strangled, and suffered shotgun wounds to the head. Frank Cobb's body was located in the kitchen, also face down, with his hands and feet bound with electrical tape. He had been shot in the head at close range with a shotgun as well. Later that day, Newton Anderson was seen unloading his Cadillac at his trailer with several personal items belonging to the Cobbs, as well as new clothes and cash, items unusual for him. At trial, DNA evidence linked Anderson to the crime. A DNA expert testified that the genetic material found on Bertha matched Anderson's DNA. Anderson had been paroled just 3 months earlier after serving time for burglary before committing the robbery and murders at the Cobbs. His last meal was pork chops, fried chicken, tacos, baked potatoes, potato salad, and French fries. His last words were, "For all those that want this to happen, I hope you get what you want and it makes you feel better and gives you some kind of relief. I don't know what else to say. For those that I have hurt, I hope after a while it gets better." Anderson then expressed love to his relatives and said, "I'm sorry. That's it. Goodbye." Donald Anthony Miller, February 27, 2007. Miller, along with his accomplices Danny Woods and Eddie Segura, planned a deadly robbery targeting 2 furniture salesmen. When 29-year-old Michael Mozingo and 19-year-old Kenneth Witt arrived at Segura's house, under the pretense of making a delivery, they were met by Miller, who was armed with a handgun, and Woods, who brandished a shotgun. The 2 salesmen were robbed and bound with electrical tape. Afterwards, the victims were taken to a remote area near Lake Houston in northeast Harris County. There, Miller executed Mozingo by shooting him in the head, firing at least 5 shots and continuing even after his pistol was empty. Woods fired his shotgun with such force that the wooden stock broke. In the aftermath, Eddie Segura pleaded guilty to aggravated robbery and received 2 25-year prison sentences. He became the key prosecution witness against Miller. Danny Ray Woods pleaded guilty in 1982 and was sentenced to 2 life terms. Miller declined to offer any final words. His last meal was 1 piece of fried chicken, ketchup, 1 bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich, 2 enchiladas, sweet tea, and a cinnamon roll. Robert Anthony Martinez Perez, March 6, 2007. During an internal power struggle within the Mexican mafia in the San Antonio area, Perez aligned himself with a faction seeking to replace Herbert Huerta as president. He targeted Louis Blue Adams, a contender for that position. Perez, along with accomplices Joe Sandoval and Javier Garcia, armed themselves and confronted Adams's supporters. This confrontation escalated into a shootout, resulting in the deaths of Robert Rivas and Jose Travieso and the wounding of Jesse Travieso. Perez was convicted of voluntary manslaughter in 1990 for his role in the shootings and was released on parole in 1992. Prior to his state trial for the murders of Travieso and Rivas, Perez had been a co-defendant in a federal trial concerning the murders of 5 people at the West French Place apartments. In that federal trial, he was convicted of racketeering and conspiracy and sentenced to life in prison. However, he never served the federal life sentence because he was later sentenced to death in his state trial. His last meal was 5 pieces of fried chicken, 1 double meat hamburger with cheese and onion rings, 3 cheese and onion enchiladas, 1 onion, French fries, hot sauce, pico de gallo, jalapeno peppers, and 2 Cokes. His last words were, "Yes, sir, Ernest, Christopher, Ochente, Mary, and Jennifer, tell all the kids I love them and never forget. Tell Bobby Mr. Bear will be dancing for them. Tell Bear not to feel bad. My love always. I love you all. Stay strong, Mary. Take care of them. I love you too. I am ready, Warden. I got my boots on like a cowboy." Joseph Bernard Nicholls, March 7, 2007. Nicholls and Willie Ray Williams went to Joseph's Deli in Houston armed with handguns. Upon seeing the weapons, deli employee Claude Schaefer Jr. bent down or squatted behind the counter. Nicholls and Williams immediately opened fire. After shooting, Nicholls ran out of the door while Williams fired one more shot at Schaefer, then went behind the counter, grabbed the cash box, and fled. The two joined accomplices Charlotte Parker and Evelyn Harvey waiting in a car and drove away. Nicholls told Parker and Harvey that he believed he had shot Schaefer in the chest, and Williams claimed to have run back inside to shoot Schaefer again. Schaefer died from a single gunshot wound. At the time of the murder, Nicholls was on felony probation for theft and had been involved in a series of robberies shortly before this crime. Willie Ray Williams was later sentenced to death in a separate trial and was executed in 1995. Nicholls declined a special last meal. When the warden asked him if he wanted to make a last statement, he said, "Yes, I do." He then mentioned the supervisory corrections officer on death row by name and uttered a string of obscenities about her. Then he said, "That's all I gotta say." Charles Anthony Neely, March 20, 2007. Armed with a shotgun, Charles Neely entered the Dallas convenience store with an accomplice who carried a handgun. The store owner, Jiten Bhakta, was asleep in the office while his brother, Satishpi Bhakta, and 17-year-old employee Vijay Patel were behind the counter. Neely went into the office and shot Jiten in the chest. Meanwhile, his accomplice shot Patel in the head. Both victims died. Afterwards, Neely emerged with a briefcase full of money and declared, "I got the man in the office." The man then took cash from the register, grabbed wine and beer, and left the scene. Satishpi Bhakta, who survived the attack, positively identified Neely at trial. Claude Neely, the accomplice who killed Patel, was sentenced to life in prison. The getaway driver, Reginald Mitchell, testified that as they fled, Charles Neely cheerfully remarked, "This is the way the Neelys do it." Mitchell received a 2-year sentence for his role in the robbery. Neely refused the final special meal. Neely made his last statement a calm 4.5-minute monologue. In it, Neely asked witnesses to tell the guys on death row, "I'm not wearing a diaper." He then criticized the Dallas County assistant prosecutor who handled his case. "You messed up. Now to cover it up, the state is killing me. I'm not sad and bitter. I feel sad for everyone else. You have to stay here. I'm going to someplace better." He also encouraged his relatives and friends who were present and said that he was going to be with his mother and Allah. "Don't bury me in that prison graveyard. I want to be buried next to Mama. By the way, the reason it took so long was because they couldn't find a vein. I used to tear up the doctor's office. I hate needles." Neely continued talking as the lethal injection was administered. As he was losing consciousness, Neely said he could feel it. Vincent Gutierrez, March 28, 2007. Randy Arroyo had recently bought a car similar to a Mazda RX-7 and told Vincent Gutierrez and others at Christopher Suaste's home that he wanted to steal a real RX-7 for parts. The next morning, Suaste, Arroyo, and Gutierrez drove to an apartment complex where a red Mazda RX-7 belonging to Air Force Captain Jose Cobo was parked. As Cobo got into his car to head to work, Gutierrez and Arroyo forced their way in at gunpoint and took off with him inside. When Cobo tried to escape, Gutierrez shot him in the back. They dumped his body on the side of the interstate and abandoned the car shortly after. Later, Gutierrez laughed as he told friends about the killing. Arroyo and Suaste eventually went to the police and voluntarily confessed to their roles in the crime. They showed authorities where to find the handgun Gutierrez used to murder Cobo, as well as the .25 caliber handgun Arroyo had during the robbery and kidnapping. Arroyo was also sentenced to death, but his sentence was later commuted to life after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled juveniles could not be executed for crimes committed under the age of 18. Suaste received a 35-year sentence for aggravated robbery. Gutierrez's last meal was 5 cheese enchiladas, 2 carne guisada tacos, an onion, a tomato, 2 jalapeno peppers, a bunch of grapes, a pint of butter pecan ice cream, and a banana milkshake or strawberry-flavored milk. His last words were, "I would like to tell everybody that I'm sorry about the situation that happened. My bad. Everybody is here because of what happened." He thanked his family for their support and gave one final send-off to his brother Philip. "My brother, where's my stunt double when you need one?" he said with a laugh. He then said a brief prayer and was pronounced dead at 6:23 p.m., 7 minutes after the lethal drugs began to flow. Roy Lee Pippen, March 29, 2007. Pippen ran an air conditioning business in Houston, but behind the scenes, he was using it as a front to launder money for Colombian drug traffickers. When some of that money went missing, Pippen suspected two men, Elmer and Fabio Buitargo. He had them taken to a motel and later brought them to his warehouse in Houston, where they were held for several days and interrogated about the missing cash. Eventually, both men were shot. Although seriously injured, Elmer managed to escape after Pippen left the warehouse. He was found by police at a neighboring building and identified Pippen as the person who shot him. At trial, Pippen admitted he was involved in kidnapping the victims, but denied being the one who shot them or even being there when the shootings happened. Pippen declined the last meal. His last words were, "I charge the people of the jury, trial judge, the prosecutor that cheated to get this conviction. I charge each and every one of you with the murder of an innocent man. You will answer to your maker when you find out you have executed an innocent man." Pippen again admitted his role laundering drugs and money and said, "I ask forgiveness for all of the poison I helped bring into the U.S., the country I love." He also expressed his love to his family, including his son and daughter, before he concluded with, "That's it, Warden. Go ahead and murder me." As the lethal drugs began to flow at 6:34 p.m., Pippen uttered, "Jesus, take me home." James Lee Clark, April 11, 2007. Clark and his accomplice, James Richard Brown, had both been out of prison for less than 2 weeks when they came across Sherry Catherine Cruz and Jesus Garza at Clear Creek, just north of Denton. They were carrying a rifle and a shotgun, both of which they had stolen from cars, and were actively looking for someone to rob. DNA evidence later confirmed that Clark essayed Cruz multiple times before shooting her in the back of the head with a shotgun and pushing her body into the water. He then used the same weapon to shoot Garza under the chin and discarded his body in the creek as well. The next day, Clark and Brown showed up at a nearby convenience store covered in sand, with Brown nursing a shotgun wound to his leg. Both men were questioned and eventually admitted they had been at Clear Creek, though each tried to pin the murders on the other. Investigators later found the shotgun stock and ammunition at Clark's residence. Brown was also tried for capital murder, but was ultimately convicted of robbery and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Clark refused the special last meal. When asked if he had a last statement to make, he said, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know." Clark then turned and appeared to see the witnesses behind the glass. "I didn't know anybody was there," he said with another laugh. "Howdy." With that, he made a noise like a gurgle and was still. Ryan Heath Dixon, April 26, 2007. At the age of 18, Dixon entered a small neighborhood grocery store with his younger half-brother, Dane Dixon, who was still a minor. Their intention was to steal beer, but they were confronted by the store's owner, 61-year-old Carmelo Suras. In response, Dixon pulled out a sawed-off .22 caliber rifle he had concealed under his coat and fired a single shot into Carmelo's chest. Despite the fact that Carmelo's wife Marie complied by placing all the cash from the register onto the counter and kneeling down, she was also shot, this time in the face. The robbery resulted in just $52 and some beer. Later, Dixon confessed to law enforcement that he had been the one who fired both fatal shots. His statement was supported by forensic findings and the testimony of Dane Dixon during the trial. Dane received a 15-year prison sentence for his involvement in the robbery. Ryan Dixon's last meal was fried chicken, fried eggs, French fries with white gravy, apple pie and ice cream, 5 biscuits, chili with jalapeno peppers and cheese, lemonade, and 5 containers of milk. His last words were, "I'd like to say I love my mother, brother, sister, grandmother, cousins, and nieces, and my brothers and sisters I have never met. I do apologize to the victim's family. I am responsible for them losing their mother, their father, and their grandmother. I never meant for them to be taken. I am sorry for what I did and take responsibility for what I did." Charles Edward Smith, May 16, 2007. Tim Hudson was serving as a deputy sheriff in Pecos County and was just 9 months away from retiring when he responded to a call regarding the theft of $22 worth of gasoline from a service station near Bakersfield. Around midnight, he attempted to pull over a van that matched the reported description. Inside the van were Charles Edward Smith and his cousin, Carol Bernard Smith, both escapees from a Kansas work release facility. They had escaped a week prior and had stolen the van and a revolver in Houston, intending to travel to New Mexico. As Deputy Hudson moved to pass the van on the left side, Charles Smith fired 3 shots toward his patrol vehicle. One of the bullets struck Hudson in the side, fatally wounding him. The incident led to a widespread manhunt throughout West Texas, culminating in a police pursuit and an exchange of gunfire. Upon being captured, Smith gave a full confession, stating that he had always dreamed of killing a law enforcement officer and that he now felt his life was complete. Smith was convicted of Hudson's murder by 3 separate juries and was sentenced to death on all 3 occasions due to 2 of the convictions being overturned on appeal. His last meal was 9 tacos, 9 enchiladas, French fries, 16 Pepsis, salad with ranch dressing, a bowl of picante sauce, beef fajitas, a bowl of shredded cheese, a strawberry cake with strawberry frosting, and 6 jalapeno peppers. He didn't have any last words. Michael Darwad Griffith, June 6, 2007. Griffith was a frequent customer at the Always and Forever flower shop in Houston, which was run by 44-year-old Deborah McCormick and her mother. On the day of the crime, he entered the shop, placed an order, then pulled out a handgun and robbed McCormick of $400 and several credit cards. He then forced her into a back room where he essayed her before stabbing her multiple times with a butcher knife. Just minutes after the attack, Griffith used one of the stolen credit cards. Over the next 3 weeks, he continued to use the cards to entertain various girlfriends. When he was arrested, authorities found him in possession of both the credit cards and the knife used in the crime. DNA testing confirmed that the blood of both Griffith and McCormick was on the weapon. In addition to this case, Griffith had also been found guilty of 2 other violent robberies involving female victims that occurred that same month. One incident took place at a savings and loan institution, and the other at a bridal shop. Both women survived and later testified against him. Before these crimes, Griffith had served for 10 years as a deputy with the Harris County Sheriff's Department, but was dismissed in 1993 following domestic violence allegations. According to prison officials, Griffith may have been the first former law enforcement officer executed in Texas since the resumption of executions in 1982. For his last meal, he had breakfast food, including fried eggs. His last words were, "Please take my spirit to the Lord." Lionol Gonzalez Rodriguez, June 20, 2007. Rodriguez, carrying a shotgun and an automatic rifle he had stolen from his stepfather the day before, teamed up with his cousin James Gonzalez to drive around town looking for a place to commit a robbery. At a stoplight in Houston, Rodriguez spotted a young woman sitting alone in a car besides them. He raised the rifle and fired once, hitting her in the temple. He then jumped out, dragged the woman's body onto the street, and fled in her car, with Gonzalez following behind. The victim, 22-year-old Tracy G., had been working a double shift that night to cover for her pregnant sister. Rodriguez was caught about 4 hours later in Fort Bend County while still in the stolen car. Blood from Tracy soaked the inside of the vehicle and Rodriguez's pants, and traces of her bone, blood, and brain matter were found in his hair. He admitted to killing her. Rodriguez refused the final special meal. His last words were, "You have every right to hate me. You have every right to want to see this. To you and my family, you all don't deserve to see this. It is the right thing to do. None of this should have happened. I've got a good family, just like you are a good family. I couldn't do this in a letter. I had to do this face to face, eye to eye." Rodriguez said he hoped that G's family could put aside any bitterness because of what he did. "I'm responsible. I'm sorry to you all. This should have never happened." He thanked his relatives, adding, "We'll see each other again." He muttered a brief prayer, mouthed them a kiss, and closed his eyes as the lethal drugs began to take effect. Hilberto Guadalupe Reyes, June 21, 2007. Yvette Barras was reported missing after failing to return home following her shift as a waitress at a restaurant in Mulshaw, Texas. Authorities sought to question Reyes in connection with her disappearance, but were unable to locate him. This raised suspicions about his involvement. 2 days after Barras was last seen, her battered body was discovered hidden under clothing in the hatchback of her stolen car, roughly 450 miles south of Presidio, near the Rio Grande opposite Mexico. Blood evidence found outside the restaurant where Barras worked led police to believe she was attacked at that location. Before dawn the following morning, border police questioned Reyes as he crossed the border on foot but had no grounds to hold him. Acting on a tip, police arrested Reyes 3 months later in New Mexico. During the trial, witnesses described a turbulent relationship between Reyes and Barras. A police officer testified that Barras had reported Reyes stalking her 2 weeks prior to her disappearance. DNA from Reyes was found on Barras's clothing. His last meal was barbecue turkey and brisket, a bowl of cheddar cheese and avocados. His last words were, "I love y'all and I'm going to miss y'all." Patrick Bryan Knight, June 26, 2007. When Walter and Mary Ann Werner came home from work in Amarillo, they were confronted by Knight and his accomplice, Robert Bradfield, who locked the couple in their basement. The following day, the two men used the Werners' vehicles to try to get money. That evening, they tied up, gagged, and blindfolded Walter and Mary Ann, forced them into their own van, and drove them to a rural location. Knight made the couple exit the van and kneel before shooting each in the back of the head. He then dragged their bodies into a roadside ditch, returned to his trailer next door to the Werners, and went to sleep. During the investigation into the Werners' disappearance, Knight confessed and guided officers to the victims' bodies. Bradfield is serving 2 life sentences. Knight's last meal was fried pork chops and chicken, along with garlic toast and ice cream. His last words were, "I said I was going to tell a joke. That has set me free. That's the biggest joke. I deserve this." He thanked God for his friends and made a plea on behalf of fellow inmates he said were innocent. And the other joke is that I am not Patrick Bryan Knight and y'all can't stop this execution now. Go ahead, I'm finished. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.